the thought of crocheting clothes sounds intimidating to you, this is the video for you to watch, because I'm breaking it down how you can make your first crochet clothing project. And it doesn't even matter if you just started crocheting yesterday. With everything I'm going to be sharing in this video, you're going to be able to crochet a beautiful piece of clothing for yourself that would fit you very well, okay? Because there's also that issue of people crocheting and the crochet cloth not fitting them exactly how they want it to. So keep watching. Okay, before we proceed, click on the subscribe button down below if you love crochet and you love to learn more about crochet and how you can potentially make money from your crochet skill. Again, today I'm sharing with you how anyone can crochet a clothing piece that will look good on them. Of course, I believe you already know how to crochet. It doesn't matter if you don't know how to crochet clothes, but as long as you know how to crochet, then you're able to follow along in this video. But if you don't know how to crochet and you'd love to learn, then click the link in the description box to enroll for my free crochet class. It's a 5-day crochet class that I'm teaching for free. At the end of that class, you're going to have made a crochet hat for yourself that you can show off or even start to sell. But for you that already knows how to crochet, let's begin today's video. Making crochet clothes can be as easy as crocheting 2 rectangles. Trust me on that. Now, this is not how all crochet clothes are made, but for a beginner who is just about to go into the world of crocheting clothes, you can definitely start by crocheting 2 rectangles, and I'm going to be talking you through the process. Crocheting 2 rectangles would work as the body of your clothing piece, but if you want sleeves, then you go ahead to crochet 4 rectangles. 2 of the rectangles will be for the body and the other 2 rectangles will be for the sleeves. Honestly, it's that easy, and with the way I'm going to break it down in this video, you are also going to feel confident enough to tackle your next clothing project. When you look on the screen right now, you're going to see a rectangle. This rectangle represents your body panel, and you're going to be crocheting 2 of these. One rectangle will be the front of your clothing piece and the second rectangle will be the back of your clothing piece. Okay, first you want to get your yarn and your hook that you're going to use. Don't sweat it too much. You can crochet with any yarn whatsoever that you have available to you, and you can use any hook that you have available to you. However, you want to note that if you're working with a thin yarn, it means that your finished crochet fabric will be thin as well. It will be lightweight. If you're working with a chunky yarn, a yarn that is thick, it means that your finished crochet piece will be thick. It doesn't mean that the thick project is better than the thin project. I'm just trying to let you know what to expect depending on the yarn you are working with. If you have a thin yarn and you're trying to make a thick crochet piece, then you can work with multiple strands of that thin yarn to get the desired thickness that you want for your project, okay? But you can also read the blog post that I've linked in the description box. I have a blog post about how to choose the right yarn for your crochet project, and I have another blog post about how to choose the right hook size for your crochet project. So you can read that if you need any help choosing the correct yarn or the hook size to use. Once you choose your yarn and hook size, you want to then go ahead to look for a crochet stitch that you're going to be using for the project. Of course, there's so many different crochet stitches. Here on my YouTube channel, I have over 50 different stitch tutorials, so you can look through to see the crochet stitch you want. The stitch you use is what your piece is going to look like, okay? You can decide to work with basic crochet stitches, that's the double crochet, single crochet. I also have tutorials for this on my YouTube channel. Just check the description box below for a link to watch, okay? Once you choose your stitch that you'll be working with, you now want to start crocheting. But before you start crocheting, make sure that you take your measurements and put it in the sketch. So remember that rectangle that I showed you earlier? You're going to draw out that rectangle in a notepad and you put your measurements in that rectangle, because that is what is going to guide you as you start crocheting. That's how you're going to know when you have made enough stitches. That's how you are going to know when you've made enough rows, okay? So just get a tape measure. If you have a friend around, get them, and you're going to measure the widest part of your body horizontally. The widest part of your body is going to be different. For example, if you're making a top or a sweater, the widest part of your body would most likely be your bust, because this is a short piece. It doesn't go over your hips, because ideally or usually the widest part of a woman's body is the hips. But if the piece you're making is not even going to get to your hips, there's no point measuring your hips. You don't need that measurement. So if you're making a dress, you probably want to use your hips measurement, because that will most likely be the widest part. If you're making a top, you most likely want to use your bust measurements because that will be the widest part. Now let me put a full disclaimer here because I understand that women have different body shapes. Please measure your bust, your waist, and your hips. Measure the three parts if you're making a dress so that you can see the biggest measurement. You're going to be working with the biggest measurement. If you're making a top or a sweater, if you're making a piece that does not get to your hips, then you only need to measure your bust and your waist. Look at the two measurements, look at the one that is bigger, and that is the measurement you're going to be working with. I'm going to use myself as an example. So let's say I want to make this sweater for myself, right? My bust is the widest part. My bust measures 34 inches and my waist measures 25 inches. Obviously, 34 is bigger than 25. So I'm going to be working with 34 inches. Remember what I'm saying. This is the most important thing. You work with the biggest measurement, okay? If you measure all the parts, take the biggest measurements, and that's what you're going to be working with. I would be working with 34 inches in the case of this example. Now you take that 34 inches or whatever your measurement is and you divide it into two. The reason why you're dividing into two is because we're working front panel and back panel, okay? So if you don't divide into two, if you do 34 for one panel, 34 for the second panel, by the time you sew it together, you're going to end up with 68, which of course is not what you want. So you need to divide into two. So when I divide 34 into, I have 17, 17. When I sew 17 and 17 together, it gives me 34. All right, so you divide your measurements in two because you're working in two panels. Now let me just add one more thing for you guys. If you want an oversized piece, it means that you need to add a couple of inches to your measurements, okay, if you want the piece to be oversized. And if you don't want the piece to be oversized, just use your exact measurement. So you can see that the sweater I'm wearing in this video is oversized, meaning that I added extra inches to my measurement, okay? So just right now, write down the measurements in your rectangle. Again, draw that rectangle in your notepad and put your measurement. You're going to put the width, okay? That width measurement is what I just explained, the measurement of the widest part of your body divided by 2. You put it there. Then you're going to put the length. This is how long you want the piece to be. So just measure how long you want the piece to be and write it down. I should also let you know that when measuring, you want to take into consideration your units of measurement. You're either going to be measuring in inches or in centimeter. Whatever you measure in, make sure you write it down so that you don't get confused as you start crocheting. You're ready to begin crocheting, okay? I know that those other parts might have been boring, but when you start crocheting now, you know you already chose the crochet stitch you want to work with. You're going to crochet a swatch, right? This swatch usually causes a lot of I don't want to do the swatch, you know, but you need to do a swatch because the swatch is how you're going to know for sure the number of stitches that should be in your project. If you don't know how to do a swatch, I'll link a blog post down below, or just go to any one of my stitch tutorials and follow that stitch tutorial. When you follow the tutorial, whatever you have is going to be your swatch. Just do 10 rows. If you're working with double crochet stitches, work 20 double crochet stitches and do 10 rows of that. Fasten it off. That's your swatch. If you're using a fancy stitch, just work a couple of stitches, maybe 20 stitches, 25 stitches, and do that for like 10 rows, 11 rows, 13 rows, and that's going to be your swatch. You basically want to crochet a rectangle that is like 5 inches by 5 inches or 6 inches by 6 inches. That's going to be your swatch. If you're done with your swatch, you're actually almost done. The reason why we're doing this swatch is because we want to know how many stitches do we need to have in our project to give us the desired measurements, right? So your swatch is how you're going to determine that. Measure your swatch to see how many stitches you have in 3 inches. Let's say you have 10 stitches in 3 inches of fabric. It means that if you want 30 inches of fabric, for example, you're going to have to do 100 stitches. It's just math. You're going to calculate it. So if 10 stitches equals 3 inches, 20 stitches will be 6 inches, you know, 30 stitches will be 9 inches. You just add it on like that. You can just cross multiply. Very easy. I'll put a little me working out on screen right now. If 10 inches equals 3 inches, how many stitches will give me my desired measurement? Your desired measurement is that measurement that you've written down in your sketch, okay? Remember that rectangle, remember that width that you wrote down in your rectangle. That is your desired measurement. So that's the measurement you're going to use when you're doing this calculation. You measure your swatch first so that you can count the number of stitches in your swatch. The number of stitches, when you know the number of stitches in your swatch, you can use that to determine the number of stitches that would be in your project. If all of this sounds very, oh, I'm not sure I understand, please go take that my beginner class that I've linked in the description box down below. You're going to see how I'm measuring my swatch, how I'm counting the stitches, and how I'm doing this calculation in real time, so that you're able to apply that to your clothing project. It's a free class. Just click the link in the description box to enroll for the class. So once you're done with your calculation, you now know how many stitches will be in your project. Okay, now you're ready to begin. Just work the number of stitches that you want to have, and then continue working row after row until you get your desired length. It really is that easy. When you're done with your front panel, go ahead and do your second panel. That would be the back. Okay, and then you join it together. Join it together on the shoulder and on the sides, making sure to leave space for your arm, and you are really done with your first clothing project. If you want to have sleeves, you crochet the sleeve as a rectangle as well. You're going to put in how wide you want the sleeve to be and how long you want it to be. When you're done crocheting the sleeve, you join it, you sew it up to form a cylinder. Then you're going to attach the cylinder to the armhole. You know that space that you left in the body. You join the cylinder there. All right, you join the second cylinder there, and you're done with your first crochet top, crochet sweater, crochet whatever you want it to be. You guys, it really is that easy. And I know that, like I've said, this is not how all crochet clothes are made. But if the thought of crocheting clothes overwhelm you, trust me, by the time you've done your first crochet clothing project, you're going to feel confident enough to tackle subsequent ones, even if they are a little bit harder, because you've already successfully finished a crochet clothing project. If you follow everything I've said in this video, I am so sure that you're going to be able to make your first crochet clothing project. And remember, I have that free class linked in the description box below, where you can further understand everything I've explained in this video. Go register. Even if you're not a beginner, at least if you don't understand everything I've said in this video, that means that there are still some new things you need to learn, which I already teach in that class. Register. I would love to see you there. You can decide to start selling your crochet pieces when you're done making it, or just start making crochet pieces for yourself. It's very fun, very exciting to wear what you make. Trust me, the feeling is out of this world. Okay, and I'm going to link my other crochet stitch tutorials as well in the description box down below, so you can see some exciting stitches to use for your project. I'm very pro, like, create something of your own. You don't always have to work with other people's patterns, and with everything I've taught in this video, you can actually create your own crochet clothing project without using anybody's pattern. If you do follow this, definitely send me pictures on Instagram. I'd love to see what you create. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos, and I'll see you in the very next one.